Hi there, this is Paulette Downey, and I have a message from the Lord. I did this on Friday. The message was dealing with difficult people. That was the message that God wanted me to speak on, and I went to upload it, and it wouldn't upload. Oh, I mean, well, I don't know. Something happened, and yes, I didn't get to upload it. The upload failed, and I had to delete it because I was also doing a skincare minute with Paulette Downey. So I had to delete it, and it wasn't uploading as quickly as it should have. Normally, these things only take like a couple of minutes to upload, but it was taking hours to upload, so then I had to delete it. In any event, I was unable to upload it to my channel, my YouTube channel. So I am back, as I had mentioned on Friday. I sent out a message saying that I would be doing this message again, and so here I am. I'm going to be doing it again. I hope that it can capture what I had spoken on Friday and the way I said it. So I will do the best I can. Because usually, yeah, it's not like I write these things down. I just, like right now, I just have the points, and then I'll go from there. Dealing with difficult people, I had hoped that I could call it something else. I had searched in my head for another way of framing it, and nothing would come up that was, I thought that was appropriate. I got the point across the way dealing with difficult people. I think really and truly, I mean, there may be another way in which to say it that really does get the point across, but I think that is the best title. Dealing with difficult people, and how do we deal with them? How do we deal with them being Christians and walking the life that we deal with God? So let me go to a passage that I have. It's in Ephesians 4, and it is verse 2 to verse 3. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. Make every effort to keep the unity of the Spirit through the bond of peace. So, no matter what kind of situation you're dealing with when it comes to people, we have to try, and at the end of the day, and be just what it says: be humble, be patient, bearing with one another in love, and trying to keep peace as much as possible, no matter how difficult the situation is or the circumstance is. So I am going to start off, and I got it a little, it's so funny here because I forgot my notes that I had on Friday, so I had to like go into my brain and try to pull out what I was speaking on Friday. And so I hope I capture all that I have here on my notes. It's going to be in a different order, obviously, because I just wrote it down, and I wrote down trying to remember what I spoke about on Friday. So let's start with the complainer. So the complainer, somebody that always has something to complain about. They complain about, and I find the complainer is not necessarily, I mean, you can have a complainer who also is a gossip, but they also are like, they also are their own entities. Like, you have some people who just complain a lot and they don't gossip. So this really is about the complainer, about someone who brings all of their issues to work. Say, like if you're dealing with them in the work environment or in your personal life, if you have friends who they're always complaining, they always have, there's always a complaint and nothing is ever good enough for them. So it's like they're going through situations, like I deal with people, especially people I find in the workforce. I mean, people outside of work as well, but people in the workforce who are, or in whatever, it could be in any situation. And they're always complaining. They're complaining about, like say how many sales, how much sales they had for the day, or how much money they make in general, or their job, or the people in their life, or where they live. It's just always a complaint. And they give you just this long litany of all these complaints. And like they're never happy. They're never satisfied with anything. And, they really kind of like dramatize the whole thing to make it seem like they have the worst life, even though the things that they're talking about are so trivial and meaning, like so just small and trivial. It makes it's nothing, but to them it's like the most traumatizing thing, and really and truly it's all about them, and they just go on and they complain, and it's just like it's everything is a complaint. So they complain about their customers, they complain about everything, they complain about everyone, and indeed these are difficult people to deal with, and I found for myself the best thing for me to do is to just basically tell them that like I please like stop the complaining. Like I have had to do that. Simply, especially I find like in the work environment, even in my personal life, I found that if I'm dealing with someone who complains a lot, like they just, there's nothing really, and it's not that they do have good things to say. Like they actually have, good things and interesting things to say, but they'll complain about how they hate their work. I remember this one gentleman, and he was from another country. So he was from another country, and this is when I was living in Canada. And so he was talking about how Canada wasn't a good country. So I mean, like I'm a Canadian, and he's telling me, a Canadian, that Canada is not a good country, and that he doesn't like it, and how he wants to go back. His home country was wonderful, and I've had quite a few people do this, in all honesty, and so they would complain about Canada and how much they hate it, and how it's not great to them and how they're not benefiting from it. And then they would talk about how their country is so wonderful. And so I just say, well, why don't you go back to your country? Like, if this country is so bad and your country is so wonderful, then why are you here? Why are you still in a country that you hate? Like, I'm just trying to figure this out. Please explain. And so, in every case, there was always like some kind of excuse. When I would come at them, like come right at them and say, like, go back to your own country. There's, no one's holding a gun to your head. No one's forcing you to be here. If your country is that wonderful, why even did you leave? And so then when I would say, why don't you go back to your own country? Then there would be this excuse like, oh, well, I don't have the funds. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're working. You can save up the funds. Like, if this country is such a bad country, then save up the funds and leave. But there was always an excuse as to why they couldn't leave the country. And so, it was just fascinating when I would hear them say, because I would always say, like, go, like if it's that bad, like just leave. And it was always fascinating the excuses that they would give as to why they could not leave, why they were unable, and somehow they were stuck in a country that they didn't like. So, and it's not just about a country. I mean, I've encountered people complaining about so many things, and then when you call them on it, then they have an excuse. They don't have a reason. They have an excuse. And so sometimes you have to just call people on the like the rubbish that they are throwing at you, uh, in order to nip it in the bud. Like sometimes you just don't dance around it. You just have to really just call them on what it is that they are saying, so that you don't have to deal with it again. Um, and same, like I said, with complaining, people, someone always coming in complaining about the customers. Like when I was working, I had this one employee who would complain about just, it was just the entire shift was, a litany of complaints. So I basically had to say, like, I just don't appreciate this. Like, I don't appreciate, coming into this, like constantly complaining. And of course, I'm looked at as a bad person, because although I'm not going behind this person's back and talking about her to other people about her complaining, I'm actually confronting her about her toxic behavior. I am looked at as the bad person, but sometimes, you know what, you just have to let people think what they think. And, like, as long as you are doing your part, and as long as you are not, like, doing anything to put them down or insult them. So you just have to just say, okay, you know what, I have to protect my peace here. And I have to protect my peace and just be honest, so that I can come into work and actually feel at peace. Because you know what? None of us, we all have days. I know that I had days when I was going into work and I wasn't feeling 100%. And I like to come to work and kind of like, I like to leave things at home, come to work, even if I'm feeling down when I'm actually at work. When I actually get in the mode, I don't, like, I put on my work face, so to speak, and my work personality, and no one knows what I'm going through. Not to say that there weren't times when I confided in colleagues about certain things that were going on in my life. We've all done that. I'm not talking about that. But what I am saying is that when it is just when it's always the case, when it's something that is continuous at some point, you do have to let the person know. I mean, if you can avoid them, that is also another way. Avoidance is always good too, if you can do that. It's very difficult in the workplace, also with family members as well. There are some areas where you can kind of wiggle around it and avoid people who you find are complaining a lot. But I think the best thing to do in this case is to just, you just have to let them know that you're not you're not happy with what it is that they're bringing to you every single day. So the next one is the self-centered one. And so the self-centered one is an interesting one because that person, it's all about them. It's not about anyone else. It's simply about them. And that one is, I find that one a very tough one as well, because with the self-centered person, the self-centered, and I've dealt with these ones, I'm sure we all have. They are the ones who, they are the ones who want you to listen to everything that they have to say about themselves. So whatever it is that they have to say, they want your full attention. But when it comes to you sharing what it is that you have to say, and then they shut it down, they pretend they did not hear what you said, and they talk right over it. And then they just go back to talking about what it is they want to talk about. Sometimes I have noticed, and this is something I have noticed with some people who are of that kind of personality, when you are bringing up certain things, I find, and if it's something that is a good thing about you, or if it's something that shows you in a positive light, or some good news or something like that, these people will deliberately pretend they didn't hear what you were saying, and they'll just talk over that so that they can just, because they don't want to hear basically what you're saying. They don't want your news. So they just pretend as if you weren't talking, and then they just talk over it, and then they just start talking about themselves. And sometimes the stuff that they're talking about is just absolute nonsense, and you don't even know how that fit into the conversation when you were in the middle of talking. And then they just talk over it, and they just change the subject completely because they don't want to hear your news. So they just talk over it. And but I find the self-centered person, and like I said, or like some people, they're just some people really are just self-centered. I'm trying to think. Like I said, I had a friend and loved her dearly, loved the woman dearly, but it was all about her. It was never about me. Like I feel like I said, I'm not a complainer. I'm not someone, don't get me wrong, I have my moments of complaining. But overall, I'm not someone, it's not my nature. Um, it's not my nature to be a complainer. And so, but she always had a complaint. And many of the times it was the same complaint. So it was the same complaint many times. But there was always a complaint. And there was always, and I was the type of person, and I say was, the type of person, this was in my 20s, where I would always listen and I would always try to fix and try to help and try to give guidance. And we were good friends. So when I got to the point where it was like she was saying it too much, like I basically told her that, you know what, you've said this 12 times now, and I really don't want to hear it anymore. And then she would turn it around. She would turn it around and basically say, well, friends should listen to what friends have to say, even if they have to say it 12 times. And I also told her about the problems. I also didn't want to hear that all the time as well. She said that friends should listen. Like she knew how to turn it around. So there was manipulation going on there. And so even though I knew that what she was saying was incorrect, I just, I didn't really fight it. But what ended up happening is things started happening in my world that, I needed a good friend, and she was a good friend. Um, and she really was a good friend. She was, like I said, I loved her. I loved her. I still love her. I haven't seen her in years. But I felt as someone who was supposed to be like a very good friend, like a very close friend, like best friends actually, that you should be listening to what I bring to you. And I'm not even bringing stuff to you that much. Like I'm not even complaining about stuff that much. And so when I'm in need, it should be the same, but it never was. It was always about her. And I remember one time when she turned it around to, she gave me advice and helped me. She spent 2 minutes talking about me, and then she went back to talking about herself again. And so, and that always happened. So I had to end that relationship. That was a relationship I had to end because, like I said, I did confront her. And I do think when you are dealing with people who you are close to, you should confront them. Like that is not something that you should keep to yourself. You should, like in love, let them know, like what you're feeling and, like what they're doing to you and how they are not respecting you. And they're not even respecting your boundaries for that matter, because they're unloading their stuff on you. And I found what ended up happening is I was depressed over things I had no right being depressed over. Like I found in that relationship, because she was bringing me so many depressive things, that when I would get home, I was so depressed. And I really had no reason to be depressed. Like I was depressed, like not take, like in a sense, like taking it on, but not taking it on, not going home and internalizing what she's going through and saying, like, how can I work it out, help her to work it out this way or that way. No, I'm not talking about me taking on what she was going through, but the fact that all of that was dumped on me, I ended up going home and taking that home with me, being very depressed. And that was another thing I realized. I realized that, like, every time, like I have these conversations, I'm with her, it's, I'm depressed. And I mean, like, we had fun, we went out a lot, we did like a lot of interesting things together. But, but so we had our time of fun. But when, she had her situations, and she always had a situation, uh, and me being that person that I was, I would take it, like I would try and help and work it out and whatnot, and then just take it home with me and be so depressed. And it is not our job to fix people. God has given us all our own lives, and we are supposed to be there to support one another, and help strengthen one another. And we all need people to talk to. We all need someone to talk to. We need people who we can trust and feel safe with. To talk to. And sometimes you just need someone to just listen to you and hear you out as to what it is that you're going through. Sometimes you may need a little bit of encouragement, and there is a difference between encouraging someone and telling someone steps that they should do to make their life better. There is a difference, and it is not for us to handhold people and tell them how they should live their life. You can encourage people. You can, throw in a few nuggets here and there about, like maybe, like cautionary notes when you see that it's fit. But at the end of the day, God has given each of us our lives to live. And so it is up to us to be responsible for the things that are going on in our lives. One thing I find, and this is how I look at life. Like, when you're in a work environment or anywhere, all of us, were going through stuff. Some people are going through more than others, yes, but we are all individually going through stuff. Now, can you imagine, like, just, think about it for a second. You go into the workplace, you're going through something, and everybody at the workplace is going through something. And then if you're dealing with external clients, they're going through something. And so all of us come into, wherever it is, well, we meet to, do business, to do commerce or whatnot, or to work with each other or whatnot, all with stuff going on in our lives. Now, can you imagine if all of us showed up at work as upset as we were at home? It wouldn't make the workplace or anywhere we went fun, good, nice. It would just feel dreary. I know for myself that by leaving things at home and then just putting on my work face and getting into that mode, that alone helps me to feel better. That alone helps me, it puts me in a different mood. And I find when I'm working with people who have that same kind of mentality, we can have fun, we can joke, we can talk about, whatever it was that we did on the weekend, our television shows or music or whatever. And, just have a good time. We all should try to uplift each other as much as possible, because we are all going through stuff. And it is not our responsibility to babysit somebody else. That's not our responsibility. God has given us our own lives, and He expects us to be accountable for our own lives and how we manage the things that are coming to us. Because, as the Bible says, be grateful in all situations, because Jesus Christ, God, has put that situation there for you. And even though it may not seem like it's a pleasant situation at the time, it could be a blessing in disguise. because that could be like a means of transportation taking you to a better place. So anyway, so dealing with self-centered people, again, difficult people. So now I'm going to talk about the gossip. And so I'm looking at the time here. So I talk about the gossip, the gossiper, the person who just loves talking about everyone, who just, yeah, I guess in their eyes they're perfect. I guess they don't have any flaw, or they don't think they have flaws. And I think they think no one else thinks they have flaws. And so they just gossip about everyone. They have something negative to say. There are people who have something negative and bad to say about everyone. And like there are some who can be really vicious in the things that they say about people, as if as if they're perfect. So the gossiper. I mean, like the gossiper, and I know I understand the gossiper. The gossiper's identity is in gossiping because that's where they are able to feel good about themselves. A person who gossips is someone who has a very low self esteem. There are issues. There are issues that are probably plaguing them from childhood. So they get, like, I don't know if it's an endorphin for them, but this is how they are able to feel good about themselves by putting other people down. It's their way of saying, I'm better than you because I'm not like that. And that's not in all cases. Sometimes the gossiper is gossiping about everyone, and it's like a projection thing because what they're gossiping about, sometimes, a lot of times it's lies. They're making it up. They're just saying, I know, I can tell, just by looking at that person, I can see that that's the type of lifestyle they live, or that's the type of person they are. This is the things that they do. I can see. Or if they know the person, it's projection. Sometimes it's projection. Sometimes it's they are the ones who are doing the things that they are saying other people are doing. And that I find a lot with the gossiper. So the gossiper is not perfect. I mean, none of us are perfect, but I find a lot of times the gossiper may be doing the same things that they're accusing other people of doing. And maybe sometimes the people who they're accusing and who they're talking about aren't doing those things. But even if, let's say, for example, what they're gossiping about is true, like if they're gossiping about personal things that are going on in their lives. I don't, people gossiping about how someone lives their life, how somebody dresses, the choices someone makes, the foods that they eat, movies or whatever that they watch. This is none of their business. It's really none of their business. So for someone to make something that is none of their business. There's a real situation going on where there is an avoidance of what it is that they're going through. And they're not dealing with the issues and the things that are going on in their world. It's more difficult to look yourself in the face, in the mirror, or wherever, and say, these are my flaws. Pray to God about them. Ask God, these are my flaws, God. Help me with these flaws. Please help me, change me, work on me. This is a process. This takes work. And a lot of people, they don't want to go there. They don't want to work on themselves. It is too hard to work on themselves. So, in order to not deal with their situation, to pretend that whatever is going on in their world doesn't exist, they start to project and gossip and say things about other people. It's easier for them to gossip. That is like their coping mechanism for helping them feel better about themselves as opposed to internalizing what it is that they are going through and work on whatever issues and insecurities and whatever problems that they've had in their past. So, with the gossiper, you really have to let the gossiper know. I mean, if you can avoid, like, if you're uncomfortable saying whatever it is that you need to say with a gossiper, like, if you can avoid them, do. But you really kind of have to just let the gossiper know that, I really, this is not food that I care to digest. And there's really no other way of nipping it in the bud. And I'm going to tell you something. I found that with the gossiper and with the complainer, even when you tell them, they will stop it for a while. And then I don't know. I don't know if they forget. I don't know if they say, okay, let me see if I can test this person. 4 months, 6 months, then they'll come right back. And I don't know if it's maybe just their nature. Because just because they're stopping with you, that doesn't mean that they're stopping with other people. And so I've actually had to find myself saying it again. And, a little more upset because they know I've already said it the first time. And so this time it's like, okay, now you're putting me in an awkward position to say this again. I don't know if you're testing me. I don't know what it is you're doing, but I'm going to let you know I don't want to hear this. And so I would let them know, I let them know, of course, gently. I'm not, but in me, I'm upset because, like, okay, we've already had this conversation and now it's happening again. So that's just something that I have noticed when you actually let them know that this is something that, I don't want to digest, I don't want to go there, please don't do it with me. They will stop, but they will come back. And like I said, I don't know, I can't say if they're actually testing you or if it's just because it's their nature to do those things. So, like some people may not have the nerve to be able to say, okay, like I don't want to hear this. And so, if you can avoid people like that at all possible, or just maybe just listen to what it is they're saying, but the best thing, like I said, we wanna bear with people, try to live as peacefully as possible with them. This is something that God wants us to do, to try to just be in peace. And if we are taking in stuff that we don't want to take in, we are not being at peace. We also, even though we want to be at peace with people, we also want to be at peace with ourselves as well. And we don't want to sacrifice our peace by trying to be a peacemaker externally. Like, we don't want to sacrifice the peace that we have by trying to, have people do toxic things that are upsetting and disturbing us and are robbing us of our peace. We don't want that. So it is important that we also protect our peace. And Jesus does want us to protect our peace. And he does want us to walk away from things like this. So, next, let me see here what I have here. I got to put my glasses on. I don't know what I wrote. I didn't mention this one. So, people who talk down to you. Okay, I have time here. People who talk down to you. They talk to you like you're stupid. Like they talk to you as if they know more than what you know. So how do I put it? They're always talking like they are the experts, so to speak. They always talk down to you. Another way could be they make backhanded comments. They make backhanded comments. Side insults. Just like it's deliberate. It's deliberate. Like it's very intentional what they are doing. They are aware of what they are doing, and they are trying to make you feel small. This, of course, is somebody who things are going on in the inside. Things happened as a child that has caused this person to be at this place. This is not normal. This is almost demonic. Trying, wanting to put people down, like deliberately wanting to make people feel bad about themselves so that they could feel good about themselves. This is not normal behavior, but there are people out there who constantly want to, they talk down to you, they belittle you, and they do it in the, how can I say it, they do it in, like they have like a really smooth way of doing it. I remember, I'm trying to think, it's this young gentleman and we were talking, and like he's quite a few years younger than me. And so he was talking, like, I, he would always talk about, well, I'm young. He would always, and it was in such a way that it was a gift. Like him being young was a gift, and that he was better than me simply because he was young. And, I, this for me, like this for me is the almost the bearing part, um, because there are some things where I really feel that you don't have to fight every battle, everything that someone says to you that is belittling or demeaning, or when you have people that like they give attitude when they shouldn't give attitude. They, like I said, they talk down to you, and they just show you disrespect in the things they say. They can say things in a better way, but they don't want to because they need to feel that kind of power. I have learned, and this is something that the Holy Spirit has been teaching me, we do not need to fight every battle. Every battle, every time someone is trying to belittle you, depending on what it is, you do have to pick your battles. Of course, none of us are doormats. You're not going to allow people to just walk all over you and say whatever they want. But sometimes you have to use discernment and say to yourself, depending on who it is, and especially I find when I'm dealing like when I'm dealing with younger people and they are saying things to try and make themselves feel like they have power over me, by maybe talking in a derogatory way, or I'm not talking saying swear words or anything like that, but just being disrespectful. Sometimes it's not even worth going there. And I have grown. And because I have grown, this is what I share. You don't always need to fight those battles. If you can look at a person and see, because in the cases where I've seen people do that, you know that their life, there is something going on in their life. And I know for the one person, I heard that there were a lot of problems in that person's life when they were younger, the gentleman that I was talking about. And so we who are Christians, and this is where, Paul is talking about us just, you know, being, peacemakers and just letting things go. We don't always have to fight every battle. Sometimes, like that's their kind of only way of holding on. And sometimes I've learned to suck it up, knowing because I'm the stronger person. I am discerning and I am seeing something in what is going on. Like sometimes I'm seeing that there is an issue. Like I'm actually seeing that there's an issue. And sometimes we have to actually sit back and assess who it's coming from. And when I say who it's coming from, the person inside, what is going on in their world? Because when you see certain behaviors that really aren't nice, there has to be a logical reason behind why they are reacting that way or why they are saying the things that they are saying. So I have learned to not add fire to the fuel and just allow them to have their way because I am comfortable with who I am. I know who I am in Jesus Christ. So God has given me, He's equipped me with the strength to bear what that person is throwing at me. So if I have that strength to bear it, I'm going to bear it. And sometimes we just need to ask God for wisdom as to how we deal with certain people. Sometimes we don't need to fight people because they're fighting us. Sometimes the best thing to do is to just let them say what it is that they're saying, accept it, nod, understand where it's coming from, and then move on. And like I said, this has been a process for me. Maybe a few years ago, well, not a few years ago, maybe quite a few years ago, because that was a few years ago. So I have learned how to know what battles to fight and what battles to just, it's not worth it. It really isn't worth it. Like if them feeling good by making little snide backhand comments is going to help them get through their day, I'm not going to take that away from them because they're not affecting my self-esteem. They're not doing any damage to me. And if you find that people are doing this kind of damage to you, you can confront them. But if we want to be peacemakers, I suggest you pray to God and ask God for the grace and the strength to deal with hurting people, to deal with people who are hurting, and not come down on them so hard just because they're coming down hard on us. So that would be my recommendation for someone who, you know, they like to talk down. And I mean, sometimes, yes, you do have to put people in their place. And like I said, you have to know where it's coming from. You have to discern where this is coming from. And then you decide from there, do I put this person in their place or do I just let it go? But I have found, and sometimes you can. There was also another gentleman, and this was it was a couple of weeks ago. And I was in the library where I am right now. So in the library, I hope I have more time. I got plenty of time here. Okay, so yes, so I was, I don't got much time. But yes, anyway, I was in the library. I went to a computer, and this gentleman was there who, like, I say hi and bye to, say hi and bye to. We've talked a couple of times, but I don't know the man. He doesn't know me, but we've exchanged salutations and shared some conversation, but we don't know each other. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. And so I sat down, and he said hi to him, and he said, I didn't know you could type." And my first response was, what I wanted to say was, how on earth would you know if I could type, like, what kind of thing is that that you would say to someone who you don't even know? Like, that's what I wanted to say. I wanted to say that. I'm being very honest with you. I was offended. I was offended. Holy Spirit grabbed my mouth just like that. Holy Spirit said to me, why would you even be offended by that? And I knew exactly what the Holy Spirit meant when he said that. He was basically saying that, like, I type 55 to 60 words a minute. I have no need to be offended by someone saying, I didn't know you could type. So I didn't say what I wanted to say. I wanted to say it. The Holy Spirit grabbed me, and what he said to me was the absolute truth. Why would I be offended? So I shut my offense down, got rid of it, and I said, yes, I can type. He said, I said, yeah, you wouldn't know that. And he said, no. He goes, or so I don't know if I said you wouldn't know that or if he said it. I don't know. One of us said it first. And he said, well, yeah, I wouldn't know that. Like, how would I know that? Of course, like, I wouldn't know if you could type or anything like that. And I let him have it. Like, I actually allowed him to feel like he was in the right to say what he said. Like, I actually allowed, like, I actually didn't, like, I conceded and just let him feel as if he had every right in saying what he said because he wouldn't know that I could type. Now, that's a rude comment, like saying something like that to someone you don't know. But, like I said, I let it go. I conceded and allowed him to feel like he was justified in the comment that he said for peace. So, as I log onto the computer and I go to the software that I want to get to, and as I'm waiting for the computer to boot up, I like just kind of like casually looked over on his side, like I wasn't being nosy, I just like casually while I was waiting for the computer to boot up. And I saw, like he was there, and I saw that one sentence was typed. So I saw that he was just starting a document because it was just, I don't even know if it was a sentence, but one line was typed. So I noticed that. And then as I, look and whatnot, then I saw him, typing one hand, one hand, one hand. And then I'm like, oh, he doesn't know how to type. And he was embarrassed of me seeing that. So I was very glad that the Holy Spirit got a hold of me and grabbed my mouth, preventing me from allowing that offense to take place. Because I saw that there was an insecurity on his part, and he didn't want me to see that. So he then picked himself up and left and said goodbye. And it could have been that the session had ended for him, or it could have been that he was feeling uncomfortable with me seeing that he couldn't type. So sometimes people say things in order to protect themselves. So we have to be discerning and ask God, speak to God, and ask God for the grace and the strength to deal with difficult people in, like the various ways that we have to deal with them, and try to discern that sometimes, where they're difficult, why they are reacting the way they are reacting is because of their issues that they're dealing with, and we don't always have to beat people up and pound on them. We don't always need to do that. Sometimes, if we are comfortable in ourselves, then we can just let things go. And if we're not comfortable in ourselves, then we need to ask God to center us in Him so that we can be the light for God in helping people like that who are dealing with insecurities. So, next one is I'm going to talk about Topper. Topper's my favorite. Topper's my favorite. I love the Topper. Topper's fun. Um, Maybe not fun at the time when you're having a conversation with them. Sometimes they can be fun, but the person who always has to top you in everything you say. There is absolutely nothing you can bring to the topper that they cannot top. They are going to make sure to be the center of attention. They are going to make sure that the light is shining on them, and they do not care what you have, what information you have to give. So like I said, I like to have fun with them. And with Topper, sometimes when I've seen that that's their thing, um, I would try to bring certain situations that are completely, you know, unique and serious, or maybe unusual, because not every situation is bad. It could be like a really funny thing that happened. Sometimes it's something like really bizarre and funny, and we've all had that, where we've had like really funny things that have happened to us that hasn't happened to anyone, and you've never heard like that kind of situation before. So I would try to bring the topper things that were not heard before. And you know what? I've always found with the topper that they will top that, even if they can't top it. They are not going to give you the limelight. They are not going to allow you to have that moment where it can just be you, where the focus and attention can just shine on you. They're not going to give you that. Even if what they have to bring is not nearly as outlandish or as poignant or as funny as what you're bringing, they are basically not going to allow you to have the last word. They are going to find something to out top you and what you said. I find with the topper, I find there are other, like that's one that's in conversation. I find there's also the topper in like almost like a competition. They see someone doing something and then they have to top them. Always have to top. Always, it's like it's always, I mean, and I don't know if you call it a topping or a competition or what, but there's always something where they cannot let you shine. It's just they can't allow you to have the moment. They cannot allow you. They are going to make sure that they steal your light, your thunder for that moment. That's topper. And these are issues. This is like, to me, I think it's just something, maybe lack of attention, lack of you know yeah, attention as a child, neglected. I think it's something along there. Insecurities, to depending on how they top. I don't. There's nothing. You need to pray. You really need to pray about something like this. I mean, because we can't fix this. I mean, and it's not our job to try and fix this and to fix people. With all of their issues. And I personally, for me, I just found like, with it, like I said, I do try to top, but I also do try to minimize the conversations that I have with the topper, except when I have something that I can see, because you have to have some conversation. Like if you're in an environment where you are, dealing with them on a daily basis, then, you have to have some kind of conversation with them if they're in your environment, in your space. But I just try to avoid them, ask God to give me the grace that I need to deal with them, because there's some things that it's not our responsibility to try and change a person. And so yeah, Doppler. So also, so the competitor, and I gave, like when I did it on Friday, I'm going to give it again. I don't know if this is competition or like I don't even know what you would call this. But this coworker, someone I worked with years ago, and lovely person, absolutely lovely person, and her fiance's sister basically would buy everything she bought, like even like go in her home, buy furniture that she bought, like everything. And she was in tears. She would be in tears. She was almost in tears at times because of what this woman was doing to her. She actually confronted her a few times, and it was like it just went in one ear and went out the other. Like it just went washed over her. And like her, what could her fiance do? I mean, and she couldn't wiggle herself out of that situation because it's her fiance's sister. So I I don't know what you call something like that. I mean, that's not inspiration. That is not inspiration. Um, Inspiration is one thing. Inspiration really is just being inspired. There's nothing wrong with being inspired by someone, but that's not inspiration. When you're going out there and you're buying identical things that a person has, you're trying to, the clothing. And I think there were even like, I don't know, there were classes or things that she was taking, and then the sister would end up, the sister-in-law would end up in them. I mean, like it was just, oh my gosh, like you don't even have words. Like I'm listening to this, like you can't even console someone who's going through something like this. Like this is how bizarre it is. And it was just unbelievable. I mean, like I laugh, but I mean, I laugh out of the absurdity of it. That you would have someone who would do something like this, and like she ended up marrying the man. I don't know how that situation worked out with her sister-in-law. I don't know, like, but I don't know if you would call it competition. Um, I don't know if it's admiration gone wired because, like I said, there's inspiration, and inspiration. We're all inspired. We all come into the world empty, so to speak. God does give us skills, sets in our DNA that we have, of course. But just because we have skill sets, those skill sets need to be worked out. They need to be worked on, and so most of us, we do find our inspiration. We're inspired. I know I've been inspired, and I think I don't see anything wrong with inspiring. I don't even see anything wrong with giving, so to speak. Like I'm not, but I'm just saying, people within my group. I don't see anything wrong with that because that's really what God does want us to do. He does want us um, to give. I'm not talking about giving stuff, but like if you're inspired, He wants that, right? Because we have been inspired. I've been inspired. I know, especially in my 20s. In my 20s, inspired a lot by people. Early 30s, I was inspired as I was getting more mature. Then I learned how to kind of like navigate my own way. Inspired, but not so much so, simply because I learned how to navigate things. But that's just me. But like I said, I think inspiring people is a good thing. I think that's what we're put out here on earth to do. So I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about competition. And that's not good. I mean, competition, like when you compete with yourself, competition can be a good thing. It can be a good thing if it's done right. Like if it's done right in a healthy way, where you're not competing to try to belittle someone or to say, I'm better than you, look at me, woo hoo hoo. Like I'm not talking that is not like there's something wrong there. I'm better than you, like, I'm better than you, I got it first. No, I'm not talking about that. But just competition in ways in which you're trying to, excel. Like you have people compete in relays and stuff like that. But that's healthy, But I'm talking about people who compete. It's almost like I said, it's almost like an I'm better than you kind of competition. It's, I can do this better than you, kind of like thing. And that's not right, but I don't know what to call what my colleague went through. I don't even know, but I just put it in a competition. So negative people, negative people, negative people. Kind of like a complainer. Um, I find, yeah, a negative person can really just kind of ruin your day, um, depending on what it is that they're bringing to you. Um, like this lady, like I said, I mentioned this on my last one, and all she did, like every time, like I tried, like I tried to, like have conversations and be pleasant, and every time speaking with her was a complaint. It was the conversation was always about herself, so it was always about her, and it was always either about her and everything that was going on wrong in her life. And she'd tell you about things that are going right in her life, but then she'd also tell you about all the things that were going right in her life, and they were the same things were like going wrong. So it was almost like an oxymoron. So things were going right and they were going wrong because she couldn't have a conversation where it was just pleasant. So she had to add some kind of drama there, and then she would talk about people in a very derogatory way, and she'd raise her voice, and like she's and like this. We're just having a conversation, like she's getting all like upset and angry. And it's like I didn't sign up for this, really. I just and the whole funny thing about it is you just ask, how are you doing today? That's all. You just say, how are you doing today? And you get all that. So it's not, I'm fine. It's not, I'm okay. It's not, well, things aren't that great. It's just everything comes out. And this is every time. And never asking about me. Mind you, now that I avoid her, she does ask about me. But prior to that, she wouldn't ask about me. And she was upset about the flowers. Someone was putting beautiful flowers, out in the apartment building. And I had them on display. They were so beautiful. And she complained about the flowers. And she said she's going to talk to the people who are the florist who sent the flowers, because they had no right sending the flowers. And then she was upset with one of the people who worked there who put the flowers out on the table. Like it was like it takes your breath away to see something like that. Like to just turn everything so negative. And then she was talking about how she hated living where she was living. And then one lady said to her, why don't you leave? And I said, yes, why don't you leave? And then she got even more upset. And someone like that, you cannot fix. And I found for me the best thing you can do is just walk away from someone like that and really try to minimize the conversations that you have with them, because you're not going to be able to fix somebody like that. It's just, yeah, like there is, again, there are issues. I've tried to bring Jesus to her. I really did, and she doesn't want to have anything to do with them. And you pray for someone like that. That's the only thing you can do, because there are someone like that going off on like things like that and just finding everything around you, finding something really negative to say and really upset about it, like just really angry about it, about the flowers. Like the flowers were doing nothing. They were just sitting there and they were beautiful. And she was angry at the flowers and the florist company that sent them and the lady who put them on the table. So you can't even reason, and she got really over, like she just flipped. So there are cases where you just have to really pray for people, and she's hurting clearly, and but at the same time, you don't want to tolerate, that's abuse, that's a form of abuse, coming at you like that. That's just, like, I'm not going to take that. So, and I don't think anyone should. So sometimes you just have to avoid people and pray for them. So the jealous person. The jealous person I posted on, I actually posted on my YouTube channel. So I don't know if I really should get into that. Yeah, I got into it. So I don't know if they're more, jealous person could also be like a competitor too. I know there was one thing I wanted to say with the jealous person, one more thing that I didn't mention. And I can't remember what that was that I wanted to say. So I'm sure I'll remember when I'm finished. I'm sure when I say my goodbyes to you, um, I will remember exactly what wanted to say about the jealous person. I think I said enough about the jealous person. Um, that yeah, but someone who is jealous, clearly they have issues. There are things going on. Someone who is um, who does not recognize the gem that they are and the things that God has given them. Instead, they only recognize the things that God has given other people. It is a tragedy, because I truly believe, like I said, God gives us all gifts, and yes, some He gives more gifts. He does. It is what it is. But I by the jealous person focusing on other people and on the gifts that other people have, the gifts that God has given them, and maybe some of the gifts they haven't even discovered yet, are tapped into yet, because they're in such a haze over what they see the other person has, and they feel that is unfair, that what that person has, somehow they feel it should be for them, as if God did not know what He was doing when He gave that person what He gave them, and when He gave you what He gave you. God didn't know what He was doing. Somehow they feel like they know more than God. It's almost like you're telling God that you know more than what He knows. But there could be things undiscovered in that person that could solve so many world issues, that could, you know, do things to really impact the world. But because they have such a low self esteem of themselves, and because they don't want to do the work in order to heal themselves, they will never discover or tap in to what God truly made them for. Because they don't want to do the work. All they can see is that person who did the work, that person who took the time and did the work and humbled themselves before God and asked God to lead them. You take me to where you want me to go. And they did the work, and they did the sacrifice, and they did everything that they needed to do for God to reveal to them who they are. They don't want to do that. They want shortcuts. They want the fast way. They want results. but they don't want to put in the work. And they will never be what that person is, ever, because God did not make them to be that person. But what they have in them could be more powerful than what that person who they're envying has. But because they refuse to center themselves in God, take the time to do the work that is needed in order for God to reveal to them the treasures that He has in them. Before they do, they're not going to do that. I hope, I pray that people who are so jealous would somehow humble themselves before Almighty God and admit to Him and say, I have a problem, I am jealous, and ask for forgiveness and ask Him to lead me in the direction that He wants them to go in, and allow Him to show them what it is He's given them that, is for them. And that could be, and they would be happy. Because God, what's the word? I'm trying to think of the phrase. I can't think of the phrase. God gives us the desires of our heart. So just because the desires of the heart, people think that it's things that we want. No, it's not. It can be. It can be. It can be sometimes things that we want, but it's things that He has placed in you to have. And when He reveals it to you, it's like, oh my gosh, this is me. This is where I'm supposed to be. When I thought I was going to be an event planner, I love planning events. I really love planning events. And I thought that was going to be what I did. I thought that was going to be what I was going to continue to do. I love planning events. So much fun. Hard, very hard job. But I really, really enjoyed it. What a surprise it was to me that was never the plan. He wanted me to have, like the PR education, the communications education. He wanted me to get that. And He wanted me to have the experience as an event planner. He did, because of where He was taking me. It is needed. Like for what I do need that background. I do need to have that communications. I do need to have the PR for the beauty world. I need that for what I do. So He definitely wanted me to have it. He wanted me to have the education. He wanted me to have the experience. He wanted that for me. But it was never, He told me it was never what I have for you. So because I was simply obedient, when He told me to go and work at a beauty shop that I had zero experience doing. On the same day, I woke up, I was going to HomeSense to put it in for a part-time job until I got a full-time job. And when I woke up, I didn't even turn in my bed. I just opened my eyes and God told me to apply as a beauty consultant, and not even the one across the street. He didn't even tell me to go to the one across the street, which would have been walking distance. He told me right where to go. And I had never been to that beauty boutique ever. I never stepped foot in it until the day I applied. And He told me that morning to go there. And I went that morning, and she needed one more person she needed. And I came that day. She said, come tomorrow for the interview. We had a 2-hour interview. I got the job on the spot. Had I not been obedient, I would have missed that. because I was open. Got to be open. Got to be open to God's leadings and God's promptings. He will lead you in the right way. Like I said, and that was only supposed to be part-time job. That was only supposed to be until I got in event management, and then boom, I just fell in love with it. I fell absolutely in love with it. I studied night and day every day. I fell in love with it. I'm obsessed with the beauty industry. And even when I was working as an event planner, I was obsessed. I was so busy planning events because I was planning big events, and I would make time. I worked part-time, and I would make time to study. I would make time to go on all my trainings. I was exhausted, but I didn't care. I was falling in love. Even though I was saying I'm going into event management, but I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. It was like some kind of, oh no, it was like some kind of craving. I just needed it. I just needed to just continue to pour it in me. Even when I said, why am I doing this? I'm planning events. I'm in my field. Why? I even said to God, why? And God said, just keep doing it. Didn't tell me that.